All right. What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. And I'm here with my beautiful wife. Say hi, boo.
Hi, everyone. This is AKDI, and I'm from Turkey. And today we are reviewing To Sleep with Anger, a fan request.
Yes, this is a 1990 black comedy.
Dark comedy.
Black dark comedy. I mean, they say black comedy for movies that have like a dark undertone, which is racist in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
To say something is dark, it's black, right? But anyway, this is a black comedy starring Danny Glover, directed by Charles Burnett. It was written by Charles Burnett as well. And he is, one of the best unknown black film directors and screenplay writers in American cinema history. And I'm looking forward to delving more into his filmography after watching this film, which was a fan request. And this film stars Danny Glover, Mary Alice, Carl Lumbly, Vanetta McGee, Richard Brooks, Cheryl Lee Ralph. These are lesser known black actors other than Danny Glover, of course, but everybody's acting, in my opinion, is excellent in this film. So, Akdi, what did you think about the acting in the story?
Yeah, acting is really good. Of course, you have like Danny Glover, which is a legend, and everyone else. Like, I don't think I've seen them before, but they did a perfect job. And it's just a great movie, and it's like the first time I also saw like Charles Burnett's movie. And I really, I can't wait to sort of dive into his filmography because it's really good.
Yeah, he made some other films that I look forward to seeing, like Killer of Sheep, My Brother's Wedding, Bless These Little Hearts, and also the Namibia movie that he made in 2007. He's done a lot of like documentaries and like made for TV movies, but the style that this film is shot in, I would only describe it as like the subtleness of it gives it like sort of like a warmth, but like an eeriness to it, especially since this film deals with sort of like mysticism in a way, but it doesn't go beyond reality. So it always makes you feel like, did I just really feel what I felt or see what I saw? You know what I mean? After it's over. But we watched this film a few days ago and I can't stop thinking about it. But how did you feel after you saw it?
Yeah, there's definitely like an eerie feeling about it. Like it's, I don't know, one of those horror movies where there's like no gore or anything like that, but it still makes you like nervous watching it, and that's how I felt. But I liked it because, and I guess like one of the most things that I liked the best about this movie was like that nothing was too in your face, nothing was too obvious. So as I was watching the movie, I was constantly like, almost like trying to solve a puzzle. What does this mean? Why is this joke made? And all sorts of things. And it's like, I think in one of the reviews we read in Letterboxd, it said like it's like a mystical realism.
Yeah, which is a genre in and of itself.
Yeah, so I like that the best. It's like a puzzle. And everything, I feel like there's just like so many, little gems here that we didn't even notice.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll discover them as we talk.
Right, exactly. It sort of makes you feel like always at the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
And like as I got into the story, like towards the middle of the film, I couldn't help just smirking, right? Like if this review was on like a video, the face I was doing the entire time during the film was like this. Like it's a weird face, like I don't know, like a type of thing. I don't know, like just, you know what I'm saying? Like like somebody's telling a great joke and you're like at the edge of your seat and you're waiting for the punchline.
Yeah, it's like listening to a great funny story.
Yeah.
That's full of like mysteries from your friend.
Yeah.
And also I think like Danny Glover, like just himself being on the screen, I feel like at least with this movie he has like this mischievous character, right?
Yeah.
So you're always like, just looking at him and kind of like, he's very likable at the same time, but also he plays like a bad character, I guess.
Yeah, I think the great thing about Danny Glover, I'm just going to give him his flowers real quick and also talk about him more in this film, is like, I feel like he's very good at playing villains. And like how we saw Mr. in Color Purple, of course, it probably his most iconic role. He was definitely the villain in that, and he's the villain in this too. But he has this sort of charm to him, this sort of thing that makes you not want to look away from him when he's on screen. You know, like he's very comparable to Denzel in that way. That Denzel played a villain like in Training Day and other films and stuff, but still you're like kind of rooting for him, and you want to be pals with this guy, but you don't want him too close. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like that. I don't know. I guess also in Color Purple too, and in this movie, he has that villainousness that makes you wonder, like, what happened to this man that he became this way?
Yeah.
You know, you want to know his story.
Yeah.
Like, you want to, do a blunt rotation with this guy.
So, yeah, basically, this film, is the story of this black family that lives in LA. The father's name is Gideon. He's an older man. And the wife's name is Susie. She's older as well. They live in this, nice house in the suburbs of LA. Well, everything looks like a suburb, even if it's the hood, right? But they're still, country because they came from the deep south. They don't say exactly what state, what region they came from, but they obviously moved to California as a part of the Great Migration, which was this time, this movement of African Americans from the Deep South at the beginning of the 20th century when they were looking for better jobs, better opportunities, and to escape Southern racism and Jim Crow, right? So Gideon and Susie have built their life out in LA, but they still keep some of the old traditions. Like they keep, chickens in the backyard. They have this whole little farm and stuff like that. Mary does she does some work like helping women in Lamont's class, like when they're pregnant, like breathing exercises and stuff like that. And Gideon, I guess, is maybe retired. I guess maybe he worked before, but now he mostly just tends to the house, like tends to the chickens, tends to the corn outside, I guess, and stuff like that. And the movie opens up with like Gideon having like this dream because he awakes in his garden. But in the opening scene, you see Gideon sitting in like a blue suit, but he's in this kitchen and the grapes are on fire. The table is on fire. His shoes are on fire and he doesn't move. What did you think about like the introduction to the family, their life and stuff like that, and Gideon's dream, if anything?
Yeah, I really liked that this film showed me like what that sort of old-fashioned Southern culture was like, because honestly, I felt like there was a lot of relationships to like old Turkish culture, like what my grandma used to have and stuff like that. Like. They're very, they're very like simple people, but at the same time they are anxious people, because of what happened in the history. Especially I feel like, in Black American culture and how like Gideon and Susie were. But like the opening scene where Gideon was on fire, it sort of, to me, it looked like one of those like paintings where you have like the fruit on the table and everything is sort of pastel and stuff like that. So it felt like, a piece of art. And art is something usually, you find peace in, and, seeing the flames and everything, it felt very like, it was such a big contrast, and I was trying to figure that out the whole movie. Basically, like, why was that there? Right,
because the film is called To Sleep with Anger, and fire usually represents, passion, rage, anger, that sort of stuff. But the movie doesn't exactly deal with anger, I would say. Maybe you can see it in a metaphor. I don't see it. I feel like this movie is mistitled by its name. I'm sure somebody smarter than me will say, no, it's titled this for some reason. But do you see any reason why it might be titled that?
Yeah, I think it's not like anger where, that obvious. I think it's more like passive anger, like psychological, emotional, undercover anger, where, maybe a lot of older generation might have because of the problems that they went through. And also, older people, for example, even my grandma, when I ask her about like her memories and stuff, she holds a lot of grudge against a lot of people. But because of like their traditions, nobody used to say anything to anyone. And everyone just kept holding it in, especially women.
Yeah.
But, everyone.
I could see that. I mean, to be black in America is to be angry, and you sort of have to keep that anger subsided in a way. I just kind of don't see that in this film. For me, you know, and we'll talk about that more in the story. Just talking about the family though, at the beginning, right? Like, there's this funny scene with like Gideon and Susie, because he's like so old now he can barely like bend over to pick up his shoes, but he's still old enough to like try to have sex with his wife. Yeah. Like, he tells Susie, "Come over here, girl, and let me play with that booty," or something like that, right? I was like, oh, old man wildin'. He is not playing. He about to give Susie the business on screen.
Yeah. I mean, they were a cute couple. You know, like one of those couples that sort of just like, you know, that they will be together forever.
Yeah.
They've reached a certain age and they're just like cozy.
Yeah.
Within their roles.
That old biblical love. You know what I mean? That old stuff. You know, they don't make them like that no more. And
well, we will be like that.
Exactly. Simon and Acti are like that. We like Gideon and Susie. Like, come on here, girl. But yeah, so in the neighborhood, like, there's this kid next door who plays like a trumpet all the time, and he like really sucks. Like, he can't even hold the note. Burr, 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 burr. Like, he sounds like me on the guitar, and like all the people in the neighborhood are like upset at him and like, you know, tell him he can't play and stuff like that, but he keeps on trying anyway. But there's this other kid who lives with Gideon and Susie, and that is the son of their son. So it's essentially their grandson, right? And their son's name is Babe Brother, is what he is called. And Gideon is mad at Babe Brother because every time he goes to work, he leaves his son there at his grandparents' house, right? So, you know, Babe Brother comes home late night and picks up his son, and his father gets really mad at him, like, "Why are you always leaving your son here late into the morning? What were we supposed to be, your slaves?" and stuff like that. And Susie is trying to keep, you know, Babe Brother from fighting with his father and stuff like that. But Babe Brother is, you know, taking it really hard. You know what I mean? He comes home to his wife, and, you know, he takes out sort of his anger on his wife a bit, like, just like saying, like, you know, they're always trying to diminish me. My father's always trying to like bring me back to them old school ways. He's trying to, you know, always trying to make me feel like less of a man. And that's sort of like the big issue in this film. What did you think about that when that conflict was introduced?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that was somewhat relatable because I feel like every person has those conflicts with their parents, where it's sort of like where the conflict comes from is like that generational understanding. Mm-hmm. Because it's like for Gideon's generation, you're supposed to, you know, someone is supposed to stay at home. And we also see Babe Brother's wife like working. She's like a working woman. Mm-hmm. And it feels like, you know, this doesn't really make sense for Gideon, that they should be there to raise their own child and not leave it with their grandparents. Right.
You know, there's when he goes home and, you know, talks to his wife is like, "Oh, you were spoiled." And he's like, "I wasn't spoiled. My daddy said calluses are the sign of a hardworking man. And my son isn't going to be like me. He's not going to be out there like tending to chickens and fixing the roof and stuff like that." And this is where I think like the underlying maybe current of the film is the divide between the old generation and the new generation. Like, you know, Gideon and Susie probably came to California because they wanted Babe Brother and also Babe Brother's brother, which sounds ridiculous to say. Yeah, Junior, their other son, to have like a good life, you know, the American dream, right? But they still kept those old traditions and probably that old school discipline that made it hard for them to appreciate the culture that their parents are trying to put in them. You know what I mean? And yeah, like basically everybody in America doesn't want to pick tomatoes or pick cotton or work out in the fields all day, despite what some people say, you know, about we want our jobs back. Let's send the Mexicans home, because I guess now we like to, you know, work all day under the hot sun. You get what I'm saying? But yeah, that's what I felt like is like the major like undercurrent of this film, that divide between the new young black folks out there who are the children of that great migration and the old black folks who want to, you know, still put that old biblical discipline on their kids. What do you think?
Yeah, and I mean, I agree, of course. And also I feel like that older generation always wants like the new generation to respect their ways, and I think that's like the only right way to raise your child. And I feel like also at the same time, this is like the funny karma of ours, I guess, is that like I feel like no matter how much we try not to be like our parents, I feel like one way or another we do act like them sometimes. I'm not saying like completely, but we do just, you know, repeat those certain things that they did.
Yeah, like you can't take the country out of you if you grew up in the country with your parents, right? Even if you move to the big city or whatever, right? Which is kind of sad because like everybody wants to improve upon what their parents did. You know what I mean? And you can only do so much before some old habits kick in. You know what I mean?
I don't think it's sad. I think it's actually beautiful because you don't take 100% of that. You take, you know, some percentage and then you add your own personality, own generation's views. And then it becomes like this, you know, a mixture that's original to only your generation. And then the next generation will add something even more.
Right.
So I feel like it's beautiful. I don't think it's scary or, you know, sad.
Yeah. And plus, maybe I'm just going to go back to the story a bit, but maybe it's just common for grandparents to always complain because they'll treat the grandkids nice. Oh, my grandbaby's so special. But then they come and yell at you because that's all they know how to do. Yeah. They want to be nice granddad, but they still want to be mean pops. Or nice grandma, but mean moms. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
how it
I
be.
have that in my own family. Like my grandmother, she treats me like I'm a pure angel. You know, I never had any disagreements with my grandmother ever. And she, you know, she gets mad at my mom.
That's just how it be.
And then I would be like, yeah, tell her, grandma. Like you just gang up on your mom.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so basically, you know, Gideon and Susie, you know, have a relationship with their son, but Gideon has more, you know, conflict with babe brother than Susie does. Susie is always just going to love her baby, right? And the other brother, Junior, his name is Junior because he's named after, you know, the father, right? And they call, you know, Samuel, I'll give his name away already, Samuel, babe brother, because he's basically the baby brother. So he has this sort of like little brother complex going on. And you know, Junior likes to gang up on babe brother with, you know, Gideon, with his father too, and say, why ain't babe brother here helping? Oh, he should be here helping. Every time that boy is asked to do something, he says he's too busy. He got something else to do. He gonna help us later, stuff like that. So, yeah, what did you think about, you know, Junior when he enters the story too?
Yeah, you know, it's like, it's not something too different, but I think it becomes more important later on when we're introduced to Danny Glover's character, is that babe brother is like the black sheep of the family, right? The one who's lazy, who's spoiled, who doesn't do anything to help, you know, his parents. And then Junior is like the opposite. Like,
yeah, he's the good son.
Yeah, he takes care of everything and everyone, and you know, his family is more structured and all these things. And so, yeah, that's like the, you know, very sort of classic dynamic, I feel like, that you would have in a family.
Yeah, like this, like that part when Junior enters the equation, like that part hit me because I recently had that in my family. Like I recently went home to Louisiana, sat down with my brother who I hadn't seen in a few years, and then he started hitting me out of nowhere with all this little bro, big bro stuff. And like for me, I always felt like we were even. You know what I mean? I never felt like I was big brother to him or I had authority or seniority over him. I could tell him what to do. I felt like when we were good, we were like good together. I looked at him as equals. And when we fought, I'm fighting my equal, not like I'm beating up on a younger, littler person. You know what I mean? So that part touched me. Like I just have to share that personally about the film. And yeah, another thing I got to say about this story that I wanted to talk to you about is like, you know, babe brother sort of represents like how we in the Deep South like understood black folks out in California. Like they're a bit more bougie, they're a bit more proper, you know what I mean? Like they have their own aesthetic and vibe and slang and stuff like that. And that's because like, you know, because of the Great Migration, black folks were dispersed everywhere. They sort of developed their own culture out of the South, right? And then there's this like cultural exchange through music and film and books and stuff like that. And we were talking before this, Turkey has like this big diaspora in Germany and in Europe. And I'm sure there's that cultural exchange where it's also maybe, I wanted to ask you if there's like how you look at them different. Like, yeah, they're Turks, but they're not like us. They're not like us. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think, the Turkish people who live in Turkey, there are like good things and bad things we say about the other ones who live like in Germany, like we say, oh, like they earn more money because they earn euros, and then they just like, come to Turkey as a big luxurious vacation, or, they have access to European like privilege in a way, they can go to those places, travel around Europe and stuff like that. But at the same time, we say that, oh, like, they're a bit like the spoiled child, because we think like, oh, everything is so shitty in Turkey, and they're living there like in Europe, just all good, and they don't understand the problems that we have.
Yeah. I didn't feel that exactly about black folks in California, but I just remember like, when black folks from the West Coast would come down south, like to Louisiana, we would say, and this sounds bad, but oh, they talk white. You know what I mean? Because like in California, there's like a different accent that sounds a bit more white, but it's like black English in a way and stuff like that. And also, because they're in California earning more money than we are down south, they're going to dress a little better and stuff like that too. And but then there's also like, with the rise of like hip hop and especially West Coast gangster rap, you know what I mean? When we saw what was happening in like Compton and South Central and like the Bay and stuff like that, it looked like a totally different world from what we knew down south too. And it always felt like in my mind, and I'm sure in a lot of other black folks' minds, like those black folks ain't like, even though they came from the south, they lost that southern roots. You know what I mean? Okay. And this film helped me realize like, oh, only one generation ago a grandma went to Compton, and then we get Kendrick Lamar. You know what I mean? Like that's what sort of like blew my mind about this film too.
Yeah. And I feel like, it is kind of important for people to ask like where you're from and like where you're really from. And I feel like especially in Black American culture, like, oh, where are your grandma's from? Or where your mama's from? Like that sort of thing, that people ask just because, there's that connection when, you're somewhere that you're close.
Yeah, exactly. Like it wasn't until I was much older that I started to realize like, oh, all those like bad light-skinned girls that come from California, they grandma was from New Orleans. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like all them niggas that I see in the Ice Cube videos, like grandpappy was from Mississippi. You feel me? Like it didn't click to me later. You know what I mean? But moving forward in the story, right? So there's this like simmering beef in this family until this new person enters the equation, and his name is Harry, and this is Danny Glover's character. And I don't know exactly if he's like related to Gideon or Susie. I feel like he's like a play cousin. Like he's somebody like they always called either uncle or cousin. But he knocks on the door one day, and Susie's like, "Is that Harry? I can't believe my eyes." And he says, "I was just passing through town from Oakland on my way back home, but I just need a place to rest. You mind if I stay?" And he's wearing like this big oversized suit and like wearing and carrying like a leather briefcase. And she says, "Come on in, Harry. You can stay as long as you like." And Gideon comes in and says, "Is that Harry? I can't believe it. Don't you run away now. You put your bags down, you get rest, and you stay as long as you like." And Babe Brother's son comes out there and puts a broom on Harry's foot accidentally, and Harry gets like really freaked out. He says, "Don't you know that's bad luck, boy, to brush somebody with a broom?" And so he like Susie comes in like naturally, like so naturally, she brings like a bowl of salt, and he like throws it over both of his shoulders or something like that, and like knocks on wood or something like that. He does like a bunch of superstitious stuff, and and Gideon's like, "You can stay in my bed," and Harry's like, "No, I just make me a pallet on the floor." And like the next scene is like Danny Glover literally sleeping on the floor with like one blanket under him or something like that.
But I can't sleep in a mattress.
A mattress only for massa. Well, what did you think when like Harry came?
I didn't know like I didn't know like anything about this movie before watching it, so I was like, okay, like he's a bit of a weird guy. But you know, he seems like a friend, old friend. So I didn't think anything automatically bad about him. Just something weird, right? Because of like the superstitious stuff they did. And you know, like when I was younger, I thought all those like superstitious stuff that my grandma did and all those things were silly. And even though I don't believe in them, I like the fact that some people do those things because it's just fun. Like to throw salt over your shoulder is just fun.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And not that I believe in them, but you know, just I feel like it's a quirky thing in a daily life. And also, you know, some of the scenes before, like Gideon with his grandson and telling him like a story of like the pastors who were telling like their sins.
Yeah.
And like those little moments were like hilarious within the family. And when Harry enters, you know, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, like the jokes in this movie that Gideon tells, and like, you know, Harry coming and he has certain mannerisms and like way of speaking, and just like the superstitiousness and how seriously he takes it, you laugh with it. You laugh with it because you can tell, okay, this is supposed to be funny, but also like at the same time, like, yeah, it's so ridiculous. Like people throw salt and get freaked out about brooms on their knees and stuff like that. But it also makes you think like how you're superstitious in like your own life too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I knock on wood. Like I try not to walk on the crack when I'm walking on the sidewalk. Stuff
really?
like that. Yeah, sometimes I'm looking down like, okay, let me step over that real quick. Just an extra step, you know what I mean?
I'm sorry, but this just reminded me of, there was like this cartoon, Very Odd Parents. I don't know if you know that.
Of course.
But there was like this episode where every superstition came true.
Oh, wow.
And I remember the scene where the girl was walking and she was like stepping on cracks and his mom's back was just like breaking.
Oh, yeah. I think I saw that
breaking.
episode. That's really bad.
But yeah. Also like the fact that Susie and Gideon like asked Harry to stay, and then Harry was like, you know, I don't want to force you into staying. Like, you know, I can go if you're busy.
Right. Well,
and
that's
then,
that Southern hospitality.
Yeah, and then Gideon was like, oh, we don't have people who have those manners anymore. You know, that criticizing the
new gen. Yeah, little shots at the new generation, right? But you know, Harry is definitely from back home, and when they say back home throughout this film, they're talking about the South. And I believe Harry shows up on like a Sunday or maybe a Saturday, right? Because the next scene is like Gideon and Susie are like going to church. And Harry says he can't go because maybe he's still tired or something like that. And at the same time that Gideon and Susie are at church and they're listening to this Bible verse where Jesus says, you know, I've come to break apart the family. I will put the son against the father against the wife, the grandchildren against the grandparents, etc., etc. You know, Harry is at the house looking through all sorts of shit, looking at old pictures and old letters. And then Babe Brother and his wife come over, and also with their son, and they're getting to like know each other, right? And they're meeting Harry for the first time. And Harry says that he can't find his Toby. And the Toby, I guess, is something that is supposed to be like a good luck charm, like this old African-American good luck charm. And Harry's explaining that he lost his Toby back in the day. The same way Gideon said he lost his Toby at the beginning of the film. We forgot to mention that. And as, you know, Gideon and Babe Brother Harry and Babe Brother are like hanging out, you know, they're playing cards, but also like Harry is like giving him, you know, like that energy that brings out the, you know, patriarchal man in Babe Brother, right? Like Babe Brother snaps on his wife and stuff like that. And I don't know if you have any comments about that scene.
I think when sort of like after the first day that Harry's there, after that, the way like he's, you know, walking around the house and looking to Susie and Gideon like by the door, and also like just his conversation with Babe Brother, I think this is where I got the feeling like this guy is, you know, kind of like a bad luck, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure, but something is wrong with him. And it almost felt like, oh, like he's looking at these pictures, like is he doing like voodoo, or, you know, is he putting a spell on this family? I was thinking like those things. And when he was talking to Babe Brother, like he took out a knife and said, sort of like said that he killed someone.
Yeah. So basically, while Babe Brother is listening to Harry's like life story, he tells this story essentially about him getting caught up with these two other guys, and basically a fight happens somewhere in the dark, and one of the guys dies.
Yeah.
Right? And Harry doesn't say he did it, but we sort of like read in between the lines how he's saying it, that he had something to do with it.
Yeah, he says like, I protected myself. But I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, right?
But yeah, that goes to show, like, I don't know, the way, like, Babe Brother and also, like, his wife was there. I feel like his wife was more scared than Babe Brother. Because Babe Brother and Harry had, like, this banter going on, I guess. And in a way, it feels like Babe Brother is just listening to, like, some mythical story. He doesn't really take it that seriously. Like, you just learned that this man might have killed someone. Yeah. Possibly. And he's like, oh, like, that's funny. Right. I don't think he grasps the importance.
Let me talk a little bit about, like, Babe Brother and Harry's relationship a bit. I've had family reunions with people that are like distant relatives of mine, and some of the older guys are a bit scary, right? Because I've had people in my family that have went to prison, that didn't go to college. You met some of my family, and everybody that you've met is like, bougie and educated, but I got some rough folks on my side, right? And I go to the family reunions, and I'm like sitting down, and they're kind of talking like Harry. Like, they're not as, I don't think anybody killed anybody, but I do think I got some, criminal elements and characters in my family. So, like, I don't know, like, there's this sort of attraction people have to the bad guy, and that's sort of like the era we're living in now with, like, Trump and everything happening, right? But on a personal level, like, when you meet somebody who really, was in the streets, there is, like, that magnetic energy that they sort of have. I don't know how to
explain. Like, you're just curious about the thing.
Like, you're curious and you want to know more about it. And that's what I think Babe Brother was happening to him. Like, his father had a lot of those old ways and habits, but he's the good version of that. Harry is like the bad, evil version, and Babe Brother is sort of like attracted to it because it has that edge to it. You get what I'm saying?
And I think also, like, because Babe Brother can't really talk down with his father and talk about those things, like, they're a bit in conflict, at least at that point, is that maybe Harry was like another father figure-ish person. Yeah. Like an uncle, basically, that was caring about Babe Brother.
Yeah. Yeah. So, going forward in the story just a bit. So,
by the way, when this scene was happening, they were also showing, like, baptized kids. What did you think of that when you first saw it? Like,
I just thought that was
that, like,
I do think there are a lot of religious overtones in this film. Like, Harry can be compared to, like, the snake in the Garden of Eden between Gideon and Susie and stuff like that. So, like, comparing Harry's talk about, murdering people to, like, this kid getting baptized, it's like this man is sin incarnate, and here's somebody getting blessed out of sin. So, you have any ideas?
I mean, I was also thinking, like, there are, like, it's sort of hinting to, like, hell and heaven, or, angels and demons. And Harry was the demon. And, like, the church is the angels and heaven. But when we were, like, reading this review, apparently, I don't know how true this is, but Harry was based on an African-American folk character named Hairy Man. Yeah. And this
movie is so black because I've never heard of that. Like, what is a Hairy Man?
Look at the picture. I mean, there's, like, books about it, I guess. Wiley and the Hairy Man.
I've never heard of this.
And this character was, like, believed to be a mixture of the devil and fears of their children being seduced down the wrong path.
So, like a Pied Piper, but he's hairy.
Yeah, like, he's gonna... make you do drugs or something.
Okay.
Or kick you out of school.
Okay. I mean, Harry is, he gives that energy, right? Like, there's a scene when he first meets Junior's wife, who's pregnant, right? And Junior's wife shakes Harry's hand, and the baby that she has inside, like, kicks, like, get away. You know what I mean? And later on, Harry, like, talks to Junior's wife, who does, like, community service where she, like, feeds homeless people. And, Harry tells her, yeah, stop that. You need to just feed one person and fatten them up. right? Like, stop trying to help the world. You got to only save one. And, that also, in that scene also, like, Harry alludes to the idea, like, he's already fattening up one person to, like, slaughter or something like that, like a pig. So, yeah, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, the way Harry was interacting with the family, especially, like, the first time he was there, he didn't really get along with Junior, for example.
I think he did, though.
I don't think so, because I feel like he tried to do the same stuff that he did with Babe Brother. But because Junior is, like, the good kid, he doesn't want, like, advice on how to, kill someone or stuff like that.
Right.
And so it ended up, kind of offending Junior. And I felt like he felt that this man was weird.
Yeah. I mean, I thought, in those interactions, like, Harry was hanging out with Junior and they were like just bonding. Like, because Harry is coming in this thing, with like some nefarious intentions. So he has to build allies on his path. So I thought Junior was going to be his ally. Because like when he was like helping out, he was like, why don't Babe Brother ever help you out? And Junior says, oh, he's busy. And Babe Brother's like, Harry's like, well, whatever. I'm here for you, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, at the beginning it wasn't that much. But it also felt like he was just going from one person to another person, slowly, like, poisoning them.
Yeah. Well, another person that he meets is a woman that he used to have relationships with in the past. I forgot her name. Do you remember?
I think it's Miss Baker.
Yeah, so they introduce Harry to Miss Baker. And Miss Baker is a woman who Harry either was friends with or we can assume had relationships with in the past. And Miss Baker is sort of like happy to see Harry because it's been years. And she's like a sweet older lady. She says, I'm in the church now. I'm doing good in my life. How are you, Harry? And all Harry can say is, girl, remember when you used to throw it back and make it clap? And she's like, Harry, that's not me. I've given my life to the Lord. And Harry starts like quoting Pushkin and like, trying to like downplay her, saying like, treating her like she's still like a stupid, young hoe or something like that. And she, says, Harry, you're always the same. You will always be this down low, dirty man, something like that. What did you think about that interaction? Because that was a very fun scene.
It was. And, now that we sort of talked about this divide between like the Southerners and like the people who migrated and started living in bigger cities in America, it's like, it was that sort of thing where one person moved on to a better life and the other person stayed behind. And because Harry's such a toxic person, like he was just trying to put her down and make her like less confident. And yeah, that was just like a very patriarchal trick, I would say. And I kind of thought like I sort of like rooted for them, honestly. But then after, Harry showed Miss Baker his real face, and Miss Baker started just like roasting him. I like that.
Yeah. No, it was great. It was absolutely great. I love that interaction, that banter between them, because it is this battle of the sexes, but also with a bit of like patriarchy under it, right? But like how you said, either Miss Baker or I think it was Pat. Was it Pat? No. Maybe it wasn't Pat, because Pat was Junior's wife. Yeah, Pat was definitely Junior's wife. Sorry. So yeah, Miss Baker, or is it Susie? No, Susie is Susie is Gideon's wife. Sorry, everybody, I'm messing it up. I really want to get the names right for anybody.
No, I checked it. It's Miss Baker.
It's Miss Baker. I'm so sorry, Acty. I'm so sorry. But yeah, that banter between them, it's like you said, like Miss Baker came from the South too. That is definitely her, yeah. So yeah, Miss Baker came from the South, but now that she's in California, she deleted her wholeness.
And she dedicated herself to the Lord.
Yeah, right. Which is something all the hoes do.
I mean, when we were watching the movie, we joked that Miss Baker was Sugar.
Yeah.
Color Purple.
From Color Purple, yeah. She done moved on and got her life together.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was great. I really liked that banter between them. And I felt like she was the only one who knew Harry for what he really was. Like Gideon and Susie like thought, oh, Harry's just this nice old fellow from down home with good manners and knows the old ways. But Miss Baker is like, no, that's the devil, that's the snake.
And also because I think Harry sort of showed his full face to Miss Baker.
Mm-hmm.
He was like not sort of hiding and twisting his words. He was straight out like evil and assaulting her.
Yeah.
Like, and I think he wasn't afraid to do that because he sort of knew that no one would take Miss Baker seriously because they would just assume, oh, like she's just mad at him because he's a guy and they used to fuck or something.
Or, you know, she didn't get it, you know what I mean? She spent her whole life hoeing and now she can't have good old Harry. Harry's the good boy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also interesting in this film, it's like if you have certain cultural characteristics or practices, people think, oh, you're a good person, right? Like if you just see a guy always in the mosque, like in a Muslim country, you say, oh, he must be a good man. When at home he might drink all the time and beat his wife and all sorts of stuff, right? And that's what Harry has. He has the cultural mask to hide under.
Yeah.
So Harry suggests, hey, everybody, let's have a fish fry. And so the next scene, all these old black folks from all over the community who are definitely from down home come on over to Gideon's house and they, you know, bring food like pies and sweet potatoes and all sorts of stuff. They start playing the blues. They go in the back. Harry and a bunch of the other guys, they start drinking corn liquor, that real corn liquor. Babe brother is there. He's like, is that real corn liquor? And they all get drunk drinking it out of teacups and listening to like old blues songs where they're talking about like committing like femicide on cheating wives and stuff like that. So it gets real toxic, but once again, it's under this veneer of respectability because it's like always, you know, cultural. It's just culture, you know what I mean? And yeah, Harry is still like throwing shots at Miss Baker, claiming that she a hoe and stuff like that. And she says, I'm a different person. And yeah, there was just a lot of fun in that scene. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, that was really fun because you got to see like this more chill and homey vibe of the movie, you know, where everyone just came and everyone was sort of happy, while at the same time, like Harry bringing out the corn liquor. It was like hilarious, and I felt like that sort of, you know, because that's a very southern drink, right? And not that it's like evil or anything. I found that weird a little bit because Gideon was talking about like, you know, I think he said at some point like it's bad to drink alcohol and stuff like that. And it didn't feel like Susie and Gideon were the types who drank at night or something. But maybe they just drank in special occasions. Well,
this is the thing. They didn't know they were drinking corn liquor because they're drinking it in
teacups.
Exactly. Yeah. So once again, you hide the bad cultural stuff under respectability. Yeah. Right?
And it also, like, metaphorically, it felt like, oh, this is... Because what happens when you have alcohol in you? Most of the time, people get in fights. They get angry and stuff like that. So it felt like a poison, literally and sort of, like, metaphorically, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I love that scene, too, for all those reasons, right? Because, like, I've been in, you know, black functions like that with much older folks, you know, people who were alive during, like, Jim Crow and all sorts of stuff. Like, grandma was in slavery and stuff like that. So, like, that brought me back, you know, to being, like, at those family reunions and visiting my grandma and grandpa in Alabama and, like, you know, them wearing, like, the oversized suits.
Crazy outfits.
Yeah, crazy cross-colored pattern tweed suits and stuff like that, and yeah, just the blues playing in the background constantly. And you know, there's this scene when one of the other guys approaches Harry and says, you know, I don't know what really happened with Emery, the guy who got killed, but I feel like you got something to do about it. And he confronts, you know, Harry about it, and Harry is like deflecting and like, you know, trying to like play it off and stuff like that. And also outside, you know, Babe brother gets into a fight with Gideon, right? And Gideon is saying like, you need to stop leaving your son here all the time. You need to be a man and take responsibility. And you know, Babe brother says like, you need to stop treating me like a little boy, like you need to respect me as a man. And they have this big fight. Susie finally says like, y'all aren't gonna walk away from each other, y'all gonna get this straight right now. And you know, they have that conversation, but it doesn't end up solving all their issues. What did you think about any of those scenes?
Yeah, I think like that guy, I think his name is Slash, and he came with like Miss Baker, because it was like Miss Baker, just to annoy like Harry. She brought like another man.
I thought that was a hitter. I thought that was gonna be like her muscle. Maybe that was her brother, and she's like, "I need you to beat up Harry for me."
I don't know. I mean, but I just know that his name is Slash in the movie. But I feel probably. Like, they were from the same neighborhood or same town back in South. Like, Miss Baker and Gideon and Susie and Harry and Slash. And also Harry's posse, which we will get to know more later on. And, yeah, like, they know everything that he did.
Yeah.
But because this is, like, somewhat of a new beginning, you know, they don't... He talks a little bit about it, but he doesn't want to, like, actually fight him. And yeah, like that's, and I feel like with Gideon and Babe Brother, that their argument is sort of was somewhat fired by Harry.
A little bit, yeah, which is crazy to think about, because Babe Brother seems to like some of the old ways, or seems to be interested in some of the old ways now through Harry, right? But the issue actually isn't about, you know, helping out around the house anymore. It's about sort of like new modern things, because Gideon says to Babe Brother, like, why didn't you come to your mama's birthday? You know, that's the fight now. It's not about like helping out with the roof or something like that, right? So it's interesting because like when Babe Brother was younger, they say he didn't want to do the housework and the old country stuff. But, you know, now he's older, he wants that. But his parents are like, hey, come to your mama's birthday. Don't drop your kids off at our house. Like new age parents, grandparent relationship stuff. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting. And now that I just remembered, you know, the fight was about Babe Brother not coming to his mama's birthday. It makes me feel like more like, oh, Gideon was actually really reasonable.
Yeah, but it's just... That's the thing, like, our parents can be right most of the time, or some of the time, but the way they say it, it makes you, like, not want to do it.
Right.
Because then it's like the things they base their argument on doesn't make sense for us.
Sometimes.
And also, like, the way they articulate it. Right. It's like, you just have to do it because, like, that's the way it ought to be.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
We want like more scientific explanation, I guess. Yeah. I don't know, more reasonable explanations.
Exactly. But yeah, Gideon and Susie are still superstitious, and we'll talk about that more. So basically, you know, Harry and Gideon go for like this long walk one day. They're walking so long that Harry is barely like keeping up. He's like falling over, right? And they're walking by the train tracks. And Harry loves walking by the train tracks because he can see memories going on for miles and miles. And when Gideon looks at the train tracks, he gets visions of like black people working in like a chain gang, you know, knocking down the rails over and over again. So it was very interesting. I really like that scene. I feel like there's a lot of symbolism in that scene alone. But the next day, you know, Gideon falls ill. He gets really sick. He can't get out of bed. He's feeling horrible, right? And Susie says, you know, you need to stay in bed. You need to just rest up. And Harry is downstairs, like eating an apples, you know, and we're getting like suspicious shots of him. Gideon gets taken to the hospital. The hospital can't really do much for him, so they just tell him to like go back to home and sleep in bed and rest up for a few days. And what did you think about any of those scenes?
Yeah, the train wreck scene, I felt like it was sort of Harry reminding Gideon that underneath his like new lavish life, that there's a history that they lived through together. And yeah, it was sort of like reminding him of that, and in a way that I felt like Harry sort of remembers that all the time, you know. And Gideon now dealing with the big city, with kids and grandkids and all these things, he doesn't try to pay that much mind to, you know, the past. And yeah, I mean, maybe that's why he got that vision. And then I really like that part where I think that was like just really, really, really obvious, where Susie leaves because she's like she's like a person who helps women give birth,
Mm-hmm.
right? So she says like, one of my girls is about to give birth, and then she goes away and asks Harry to make Gideon a soup.
Mm-hmm.
And Harry basically like mixes tomato paste and water,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like 2 spoons of that, and then like he just like brings it by Gideon as if he already eaten it. You know, like he's just plotting around the house, and then Gideon falls ill and all that stuff. I felt like he did like some voodoo on him, or like just some spell on him.
Yeah.
That made him like that. Like he wasn't even surprised.
Yeah. That scene made me think, okay, either Harry doesn't know how to cook or he put the bottom, like just the broth of the soup there to make it look like when Susie come back, see, I fed him, he ate most of it, right? Something like that, you know what I mean? So yeah, that was funny. And also, you know, that juxtaposition, like she's going to help somebody come into this world, bring in life, and here is Harry like hoping somebody dies too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the film is shot so excellently that like you could still have some doubt as to Harry being the villain, right? If you're watching this with a certain perspective, right? Because it's not so like Harry is not like, there's no scene where like his eyes turn red and like horns pop out of his head. You know what I mean?
There is no magical like effects or anything like that. So while at the same time I feel like, oh, like he put a spell on him, but I'm always doubting myself in a way that like, how could he have done that?
Yeah.
And there were a lot of times where I thought Harry is like just bad luck. You know, like wherever he goes, people die or something.
Right.
And one of the most like shocking, or not shocking, but different things for me, that like when Gideon came back from the hospital and everyone was like cheerful, kind of. And you know how like in today, if we watch like a family drama or something like that, I feel like people are panicking, moms are having anxiety attacks, everyone's crying and all sorts of things.
Right.
And there, it just felt like normal. You know, it's like, it felt like part of life where, oh, it's an old person, they're going to get sick and die.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way, you know, earlier you said this film sort of like reminds you of like the old ways in Turkey. Like, you know, when we went back to Turkey last time, that's what it was. Like there was an old person living in the house and unfortunately they passed on, right? Like old black folks, like that's the way it was for like thousands of years.
Yeah.
But especially for us in America, because we didn't have access to healthcare and stuff like that. Old folks would stay in the home and we would take care of them until they passed on and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So yeah. I don't exactly feel like everybody was happy. It was just a bit more hopeful. You know what I mean? Like, he'll get over it. You know what I mean? Because they keep calling Gideon John Henry. And you know who John Henry is, right?
No.
John Henry is this black American folklore character who was the strongest, biggest black man who ever lived. And one day they put John Henry up against this new machine that can tear through a mountain faster than 1,000 men. And John Henry says, I can break through the mountain with just my hammer faster than the machine. And John Henry works and he works and he works and he breaks through the other side of the mountain faster than the machine, but then he dies.
Oh, you told me this.
Yeah. It's an old story and there's plenty of movies about it, stuff like that, right? But one thing I gotta say, I gotta go back to the scene before we move on about Gideon looking at the train tracks. I feel like especially older black American men, but still black Americans in general, when we look at certain places, we don't just see a train track. We see the rails our ancestors built, right? And I know a lot of Americans think the Chinese built the railroads. No, they used actual slave labor and actual people in the chain gang to build the majority of the railroads, right? Like, you remember when you went to New Orleans with me and my parents, right? And we're driving through the French Quarter and my dad points somewhere and says, that's where they used to sell slaves. You could buy slaves right there, right? Like, I'm thinking the same thing too when I'm walking and being in different places in America, right? Like, everywhere you walk, you see just blood, pain, and the history of our people. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what I saw in that scene, which was very dope. And basically as Gideon's getting sick, Harry starts to make himself more at home. Like, he cuts his toenails like right in front of everybody. He tells babe brother, hey, go clean the tub for me if you don't mind. Stuff like that. I like to make a mess, right? And so Gideon is like out And as he's out, Harry starts taking more and more like control in the house, and Babe Brother starts to hang out with Harry more. And the people at the church come over to like pray over Gideon, and they sort of look at his wife funny because she like put like leaves under his feet and also put like oil on his belly to like get the demons out or the sickness out or whatever, and they look at her crazy. But yeah, while all this is happening, right, Harry is continuing to like build his influence more and more. What did you think about any of those scenes?
Yeah, it was like kind of scary that Harry was sort of taking over the family and the house, and that, Susie was still like, oh, like, you're so good to us, and sort of like still supporting him staying in the house. And I was thinking, oh, like he's slowly gonna kill everyone or something. And I was feeling sad for Gideon, obviously. And when I saw like those leaves and stuff, it was like funny, but in a cozy way. Cause when I get sick, my grandma like makes dua for me and then like spits on me. And that's like our tradition.
She spits on. How do you read Quran with somebody?
Not like hot.
She hot duas on your forehead.
No, not like that, but like like that, like just a couple of drops.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
And that's the tradition.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to get rid of all the like evil eye. In Turkey we have big evil eye culture. And like those sorts of things. That's hilarious.
I think it's funny, not only what you said, but also like how in the Black American tradition there is that mix of religion, get the people in the church to pray over you, and also at the same time, put the leaves under his feet to draw out the cold.
Yeah,
right?
Like it's like two clashing ideas.
Yeah,
like you shouldn't believe any force other than Allah,
right,
or God, or Jesus.
But in all religions, there's syncretism and there's metamorphosis of the beliefs, right? Like, Christianity has changed, Islam has changed too. Like, as much as people like to say it hasn't, right? There's a difference in how it was practiced in the Middle East and in Africa, right? Like, nowhere is one religion the same, exactly, right? But now that Harry is sort of like in the house all the time while Gideon is in bed, Junior and his wife are saying like Harry knows how to wear out his welcome. Like they're starting to get like suspicious of him. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, Babe Brother is with Harry more and more, and Babe Brother is starting to act like real toxic. Like there's this, kitchen scene when Babe Brother and Harry are hanging out. Harry leaves while his wife is like cooking dinner to feed Harry and all of his friends, right? And Babe Brother gets mad at her for some reason, something about her son and his shoes and something like that, and he like comes up to her and like smacks her, like punches her in the eye or something, and then she pulls out a knife on him, and it becomes like Ike and Tina, you know what I mean? We go back to like 1940, forget 1980, right? And so then he says, I'm sorry, we're good. And then the next scene is probably one of the saddest and funniest at the same time. Like Babe Brother's wife is like trying to feed all these people at the table, like this little woman, Stepford wife,
she's crying at the same time.
She's crying as she like cuts a cake and puts it on everybody's plate and feeds everybody like pork chops and stuff like that. And the people don't even care. They're just like listening to the blues, getting drunk and talking about people from 30 years ago. Hey, remember that guy? Hey, woman, put them pork chops on my plate. You know what I mean? And that was kind of sad and funny at the same time. But what did you think about like that metamorphosis of Babe Bro?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that this would sort of become more important later on, that Babe Brother was like the black sheep of the family, right? So he was, I feel like when Harry showed him like affection, he just grabbed it and hold on to it. And plus at the same time, I think Babe Brother didn't have like a good job. I don't remember what.
No, Babe Brother had a good job. He was like a mortgage broker, and his wife was a real estate agent, and that's how they met, right? So they kind of have like bourgeoisie, like, middle class type of jobs, right? So they're kind of doing well. Yeah, okay. He just works late at night. He works hard.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of doesn't make sense why, like, Harry was also teaching Babe Brother how to cheat on cards and gamble and mark your cards and stuff like that. And I felt like he was sort of just doing it to annoy his family a little bit, but at the same time he was enjoying that criminal life, quote unquote. And it was sad to like see him get violent with his wife. But I felt like maybe, you know, after in that dinner scene where Linda, I guess, was serving them, and he was feeling sort of guilty there, right? He was looking at Linda to see if like she was gonna snap or like she was crying and stuff like that. And I felt like she would probably be the only one who could like return him back to reality. Okay. And, you know, take him away from Harry.
Yeah, but she couldn't.
Yeah.
She couldn't.
And also, sorry, I have to say this. Like, in the last part of the dinner scene, she's cutting a cake and giving out dessert. And she's literally, like, throwing the cake onto the plate. And I wish, like, nothing more than she would just, like, throw the cake on, like, Harry's head or something. She didn't do that, but it was just hilarious the way she was serving them.
Yes, it was great. I really, you know, was sad to see, like you said, Babe Brother hit on his wife. And, man, I think, you know, that really shows, like, the toxic part of that old Southern culture, right? And just one more thing, you were saying, like, you know, Babe Brother is, like, linking up with Harry because he's the black sheep. I also think it's, like, just maybe a bit more simple. Like Babe Bro is a man who felt like he was always emasculated. And what brings you masculinity quickest? Toxic patriarchy. Just be an old-fashioned man. Tell your wife to get in the kitchen, smack her up and down, and don't worry about nothing. So go ahead.
But I think, like, I feel like we see this even today because of, like, you know, the older generation men love to say, like, oh, like, you should take control of the family, you know, you should show your strength. And I feel like that, I don't know, what is it, you tell me, about men that just, like, hit somewhere in their heart and head, and then they start to be, like, more assertive. And I'm not saying, like, to the point where they would hit their wives, but they start to, like, I don't know, try to make more decisions and put their foot down and stuff like that.
I feel like there's a much, much deeper issue that we could talk about longer. That I think the family as we understand it is a modern creation under capitalism. Men didn't always beat their wives because they weren't in the kitchen or because she talked back to you, right? This is sort of like what the nuclear family and like the pressures that are put on men to be breadwinners and to be divorced from the family for hours on day and stuff like that, and the continuing economic pressure that we live under, right? And you know, what you might think is ancient is really not that ancient, right? When it comes to our relationships together as men and women, in my opinion, right? I know somebody's gonna say, no, it's always been this way. Men were men and women were women, right? And I'm not saying like men being violent towards women hasn't always been there, right? But I'm just saying, like, this sort of idea, like you said, take control of the family, lead your wife. You are the man of the house. You wear the pants in the house. This is sort of like how labor has been divided outside, right? You have your boss who owns the company, the manager who owns you, and then you are supposed to run your house. Your house is not supposed to be some kingdom. It's a part of the economic engine of society. And the only way our economic racial capitalist system will work is if in our house we enforce patriarchy to make sure that when we come home we can get fed and we can fuck to reproduce new workers and also get enough rest so we can go back outside and make money for the manager and the boss, et cetera, et cetera. That's my opinion, though. I know somebody else will say, nope, it's not that hard. But whatever, that's just how I break it down.
No, I mean, I think that is a part of it. Definitely, that's a good explanation. There might be more to add, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my simplified version. Okay. I would like to know, do you have any opinion on it?
I mean, I think this is obvious, but yeah, it's just sort of what we were conditioned to do for many years. So it's that, you know, generational or structural, systematic way of reinserting power over a group that has less power. You know, just reaffirming that. And because the older generation wasn't that much aware of it, And plus, we have newer generations who still want it to be like that, like Andrew Tate and stuff like that. So it's really hard to get out of that, system. Yeah. And of that cycle. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's conditioning, but it's not very old conditioning. And it's the conditioning that flows, like everything else in society, from economics, from how our, economic system is in play and how we are a part of a larger economic system, right? So there's a deeper discussion to be had there. But yeah, man, essentially, Babe Brother and his relationship with his wife are like, breaking down. His wife ends up moving out of the house because she shows up one day to where Gideon and Susie live with a black eye, and his brother
Junior's house.
It wasn't Junior's house. It was the house with everybody. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Doesn't matter. She leaves the house. Yeah. She leaves the house with his son. And, Junior is like mad at his brother. And, Junior goes to confront Babe Brother, but he doesn't even want to talk. He's like zoned out. He's like now becoming this totally different person, hanging out with Harry all the time. Harry is hanging out with his old friends, and his old friends are like saying, "You think Gideon's going to die?" And like, there's this scene when Harry like holds a chicken in his hand and quotes like something from like the Bible or something like that, and says like all things must come to an end, and before he can kill the chicken like runs away, right? So sort of like foreshadowing what will happen later and stuff like that. And meanwhile at the same time, other stuff is happening where Susie gets confronted by one of Harry's lodge members, because they're all Masons apparently, and they're all Masons. Gideon is a Mason, Harry is a Mason, and all the other old black men, I guess the thing to do was to be a Mason, right? The Mason brother comes and tells Susie one night, "We think Gideon might die, and as a part of our Masonic tradition, we want to make sure that the wives are taken care of. But the only way the wives can be taken care of is if they marry one of the lodge members," right? And Susie is like, "Oh, hell no. Get out of my house." So what did you think about all those scenes? What happened with Babe Brother's wife, Junior confronting Babe Brother, Harry, plotting on Gideon, and, the lodge members proposing to Susie, anything?
Because this movie is titled To Sleep with Anger, I felt like the sort of Harry was firing this anger in Babe Brother. Like, he fucked everything up. He lost his wife. His brother and him are not good. His father is sick and ill and might die, and all these sorts of things. And I feel like he was just blaming either himself or others or the system or whoever. He was just angry at the world, And that was like what Harry was just firing each and every day. And I feel like the friend Harry sent for Susie, that was also another way to like infiltrate the family. And this guy's name was Okra, right? And I felt like this guy was the cutest grandpa ever, but like he was on the bad team, so I felt bad for not liking him, but I liked him. And and also like that scene where they were trying to butcher Gideon's chicken. I was thinking like, damn, like this man is dying and you're trying to make chicken soup from these chickens. Like, please stop. Yeah. I felt like Harry became the man of the house.
Yeah. About the scene when Okra, the grandfather, approaches Susie and says, "You need to marry one of the lodge members, and I hope it's me." By the way, this is the worst pickup line. Crazy pickup line. But it was so interesting because we saw him and he was wearing now a security outfit, right? Like showing he works in a parking lot all day. But before, we saw all these guys and they were wearing suits and they look primed and proper. You know what I mean? And it kind of shows, like, for me in my mind, I was like, oh, these guys aren't really like who they say they are. They have they come and bring all this culture from down home and they look respectable, and maybe they're even out west with us, you know what I mean, in the promised land of California. But at your day job, you're just, yes, sir, no, sir, yeah, thank you, boss. All that to the white man while you park his Mercedes. You get what I'm saying? I was thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, his posse was also living in LA, you know?
Right.
And he sort of came and then brought everything back with him. And in a way that, they were now acting again the way they were acting in the South, maybe.
They weren't acting like they were in the South in the presence of each other.
Yeah.
Right? They're putting on airs in front of each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, I think that was purposeful by Charles Burnett to have that scene where he is now, demoted in class by his job. You know what I mean? When before we assumed anything of these guys because they're all wearing suits. Yeah. So I thought that was important, that one thing.
Yeah, that is true because like the chicken scene, it feels like they're back home, and then you have the party scene with Linda serving them, and it's like they're playing poker or whatever.
And they look like bosses. It sort of looks like mafia guys.
Yeah,
like they sort of look, they're dangerous, but they're respectable. They're good fellas. Yeah. But no, you really just a yes or no sir parking lot meter. You know what I mean? Yeah. And no disrespect to anybody who does valet. I used to do valet, but it's like now I get it. You know what I mean? Like, so that was interesting. Babe brother beating on his wife, and she runs home. You know what I mean? Like, that is so traditional. I'm sure that happened in Turkey a lot back in the day. Women got beat up and ran to somebody's house and stuff like that. So it was sad to see. And the moving on in the story, Babe brother sort of like makes a decision. He's sitting down with Harry one night, and Harry says, me and the boys, we're about to go down home and we're going to have fun. I know you're upset about your wife, but the best way to get another wife is to get another woman. Hey, boss, you ever heard about a man having only one woman? Hell no. Damn right. So yeah, they're putting all this stuff in his head, telling him to just like forget about his kid, forget about his wife, come with them to Mississippi, Louisiana, wherever the fuck they're coming from, because these niggas from a different South, I swear, like the type of shit they say. So Big Brother says, all right, let me go back and get my stuff. So there's like this night when it's all raining and storming, right? And Big Brother comes to his parents' house, and he tells his mama, I'm gonna go down south with Harry. And she says, boy, don't make me raise my hand at you, but you know what, you need to find out for yourself, and I need you here to help your father, he's sick. But Big Brother's like, I'll help him later, I'm busy. So his mama runs upstairs to like try to help her husband from like under this leaking roof, and she tells her son Junior, hey, your brother is downstairs, but he don't want to help because he's busy. Junior goes downstairs, confronts Babe Brother and says, I'm sick of you with all this I'm busy shit. You don't want to help mama, you don't want to help daddy, you just a lazy son of a bitch. I should ought to break your neck. And Babe Brother says, see, that's why I'm leaving. I'm sick of this shit. You always treated me like a little boy. And they get into this big fight, and Babe Brother was like playing with the knife, and as they're fighting, Junior starts to reach for the knife to almost like kill his brother, but his mama comes and a bunch of other people in the family come to like hold him back, and his mother stops Junior from killing her other son by holding the knife in her hand. And when they see that, they see the deep cut in their mother's hand. What did they say?
Where's the lard? Lard, not lord.
Whatever. No, lard, whatever, man. Because that's some country shit. I've never heard of that.
Me too.
Somebody gets cut, you put pig fat on it?
Yeah, that makes... I don't know. I feel like that would make it worse.
I feel like it would too. That's insane.
Bacteria and make it like just smooth, and I don't know.
I don't know if that was intentionally funny or unintentionally, but when I heard that, I busted out laughing. I couldn't help it. Get the lard. So they take mama to the hospital. She gets fixed up, and she's smiling because now her sons are bonding together. And any comments on any of those scenes?
I think that was also like around the time where Susie asked Harry to leave, right? Mm-hmm. As well.
No. Susie didn't ask Harry to leave right then and there. I don't think so. That was later when like they came home, I think.
Okay. Well, I really like that fighting scene and like everything that happened there, because it felt like Shakespearean tragedy. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh no, like one of the brothers is gonna die, and it feels like I'm watching Macbeth or something. Mm-hmm. And that was like, I felt like done so well. And yeah, it was like that, you know, breaking point where Babe Brother's anger is just like busting out of him, and you know, everyone else is sort of like against him. And I really like, you know, how they were once again bonded by Susie, like their mother, because it sort of reminded them, I guess, like they came out of the same mother, and their hate or anger, especially Babe Brother's anger, hurt their mother. So, you know, they sort of got out of that mist that they were under, especially like Babe Brother. And I really liked how it came together, and that Susie was like sort of happy that her hand got cut, you know?
Yeah, instead of her son's neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really liked that final scene. It wasn't cheesy, even though this is like an older movie. This movie came out in 1990, right? It felt real, authentic. Like, I didn't know where the film was going. Like, I was ready for it to be a tragedy, like one of them die or something like that. And I was glad it didn't, right? It didn't have to be a tragedy for this same story to have its impact, right? And, you know, there's a lot of religious overtones in this film. And I think one of the stories that is trying to be told here is also the story of like Cain and Abel. Do you know that story?
I think so.
In the Bible, you know, the first children of Adam and Eve were two sons, Cain and Abel. And Abel, if I remember right, was the favorite of God, and Cain was jealous. So I think the devil told Cain to like kill his brother, right? And then hide the body and tell God, you know, like, now you're his new favorite, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So I believe it's something like that. I'm not the biblical scholar, but
I think
anyway.
there's the same stories in also Quran.
I believe so,
We
too.
call it Habil and Kabil in Turkish.
Habil and Kabil. It's always supposed to rhyme, right? Cain,
Yeah.
Abel, or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah. Adam, Eve, whatever. So, I really liked how that part played out, right? And, yeah, it all sort of like came to like a very good climax. That was a very well-intentioned climax. I also want to say I like the scene in the hospital where the brothers ask, you know, why are there so many people here? And nobody's seen my mother yet. We've been waiting here for hours, right? And the lady says, well, it is a full moon. And the brothers laugh at that. Like all the other superstitions y'all do in the daily. Like y'all wake up superstitious. Like y'all see a black cat and y'all like pray to Jesus 10 times. But this lady says a full moon and y'all start laughing. I thought that was funny in some way. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah, I caught that. But I thought it was more like, oh, we're kind of over this now.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, like their parents are very superstitious, but we didn't see them doing that many superstitious things.
Right.
But, you know, like I said, it was like the mist was gone from over their heads. So it was, for me, like that moment where they were like, oh, like we can laugh together again.
Yeah. Yeah. Which was interesting, like, because 2 minutes ago, you tried to kill me. You tried to decapitate me.
Yeah.
And now we're laughing and chilling. Men.
That is true.
That's very men. Very men. But yeah, they come back home the next day. The mother's got her hand wrapped up. I guess the lard wasn't good enough. And so they see Harry on the front porch. And nobody really wants to talk to Harry or say hi or anything. They treat him distantly. And Harry says, I'm just here to get my things. So maybe Susie did tell him to go earlier. Maybe. I forgot.
I think so.
But yeah, you know, I believe Babe Brother's son was playing in the kitchen with marbles. And when Babe Brother's wife hears the ring at the door, she runs to the door, knocks over the marbles, doesn't pick them up. And you know, they greet Susie, but they look at Harry strange. And so they leave Harry downstairs while they like go upstairs to where like Gideon is and stuff like that to check on him, right? And Babe Brother tries to like confront Harry, but his wife stops him from doing anything. So she like keeps him away finally. And Harry like goes into the kitchen and we don't see his face, but there's marbles clearly in front of him. He stops, he walks in the kitchen, falls down and dies. And they find Harry's body there, and he's deceased. What did you think about the end of Harry? How people reacted? Anything like that?
Yeah. It was sort of like, you know, Turkish saying time. What? Wait, I have to get this in my head. Öfkeyle kalkan zararla oturur. The person who stands up with anger will sit down with harm, with like, you know, bad things that happen around him. And yeah, with destruction. So it was sort of like that, and I felt like everyone was just tired of being mad at something, you know, because everyone was mad at something, whether it's like your brother, your dad, your
Harry,
your kid, your Harry, and it was, and you know, Harry sort of, I don't know if he actually like, you know, committed suicide in a way or did it willingly. But once nobody wanted him or wanted anything from him, it was like he didn't exist. Because like once you know, don't use the anger, once you don't like fire anger, then you sort of see like it's useless.
Right. When Harry died, I didn't feel happy. It wasn't like, you know, the monster gets slayed in the movie and you're like, finally, yeah, they beat it, they overcame it, right? It felt more like that type of death where it's sort of like, you know, like there was a lesson learned here. It felt more like, because when Harry stops in front of the marbles, it's hard for me to believe he didn't look down and see them or know they were there, right? And if we also believe in this film, he had supernatural powers, right? And he is like this sort of demon-esque character. How are we supposed to believe he couldn't feel the marbles right there in front of him, right?
Yeah. It felt very slowed down.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't sudden at all.
Yeah. It felt like he left on purpose, right? Like the spirit said, my job is done here. And I'm going to say this, and maybe somebody can debate me. I don't know how you feel, but I don't feel like Harry is a full villain. I feel like Harry what came there, like I said, to teach a lesson. Because there's other parts in the film where he does say something like that's impactful and moving, right? Like he talks about the boy next door who's playing the horn all the time. And he says, just like that boy next door who is bad at what he does, he has to be bad at it now to be perfect at it later. You know what I mean? Which is deep. And that's actually really good advice. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and like, maybe he was there to cause this friction to bring this family together, or like as a test, right? Or in reference to, maybe this is a reach, to the quote from Jesus earlier, you know, I will tear the father from son, the mother from the daughter, whatever, but to bring you closer to God. You know what I mean? So Harry said, you know, maybe I'm gonna come here and y'all are gonna kill each other, but you're gonna find God. Or maybe I'll die and y'all will come closer together and be closer as a family. Who knows, right? So that's how I'm interpreting Harry, if you have anything to say about that.
I mean, even in like any religion, in Islam or in the Bible, in Quran, I mean, devil does serve a purpose, right? It's not just this creature that doesn't have a story, that doesn't serve any purpose. And that's what like Harry's character is like. Like there's still some depth to it. There is a background story to it. But at the same time, you know, sometimes it gets lost. If like we lose its meaning. But there are certain times where we remember why we also need devil or evil in our lives, because it makes other things precious. You know, it makes being true, being honest, being, you know, respectful, loving more valuable. And I think also, you know, it was sort of unexpected too, because Harry was such a big power in the family, right? He was affecting everyone.
But he's killed by marbles.
Yeah,
right?
Because it's like you expect like for them to like kick him out, like I don't know, like shoot him.
I don't know, pull out a sword or something.
Yeah, like, or I don't know,
kill him with a Toby.
Or like at least he dies like very painfully. Right. But it's like he sort of dies
like an old man.
Almost like a divine intervention happens, and then he just like is on the floor, almost like falling to asleep.
Yeah. Like that heart attack you wish hit Trump.
Yeah.
Or I'll get you in trouble too, Erdogan.
Oh, great.
All right, now we're both getting visited. But yeah, he kind of dies just like an old man. He's like croaks. Literally, he croaks, right? And I think there's something there also that saying he was killed by marbles, because marbles are played with by kids, right? And kids are the next generation. Harry represents the past. You know, no matter what, right? Whether we try to teach kids the new ways, the old ways, no ways, they're going to do what they're going to do, and the past will eventually be, you know, wiped away. I think you could also view it that way too.
Yeah. And also it's a bit like karma-ish when we think about if Harry is inspired by hairy men who was supposed to, you know, make children go out of their ways.
Mm-hmm.
He made what was
he
his
made
name?
Babe Brother.
Babe Brother go out of his way, but it was Babe Brother's son who kind of killed him.
Yeah, who brought him back. Kind of, a little bit. A little bit, yeah, definitely. I see that too, right?
Like one generation puts another generation to danger, but then the next generation saves it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a bit weird.
Yeah, it does. There's like so many layers you could interpret it. And I think Charles Burnett, definitely meant that, because we're looking at this interview he did with Slate where he says about the death of Harry, right? He actually, in a certain sense, wins. Harry's death solved a lot of things, but it didn't free them from him, in a sense. The problems, for example, between the father and the youngest son who doesn't want these folkways to interfere with his desires to be a middle-class person, those issues are still there to some extent. There's an undercurrent there. That's what happens when a folktale is imposed upon an ordinary situation. So in some way, I believe, Charles Burnett did view Harry as sort of like this creature who came with a purpose. Like you said, Satan, right? Meant a purpose, right? And so I do think we can take it that deep.
Yeah.
But
and even though, like, especially the newer generation, even though we don't take those, like, folklore seriously, they're still, like, sometimes in the back of our heads, and sometimes they came to our minds in the most unexpected time and affect our decisions or our ways of thinking.
Right. Or now we invent new folklore. Like, it's bad luck to leave marbles on the floor for obvious reasons. But let's say it's bad luck to leave marbles in the kitchen. Like, even in a cup. Don't even leave them in a cup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, basically the movie ends with Harry's body being there on the floor, and he stays there for like 2 days because the EMT comes and they say, well, because he died in your house, we can't take him. So like the whole family stays over to like, protect, Susie and watch over Gideon and stuff like that, and to take a look at Harry because that's where the body is, which I think is a purpose. It also shows like, funerals, weddings, births, those bring people together. So the family is there. They're just like relaxing, eating like chicken and stuff like that. There's like an earthquake that happens one morning when they all wake up. Gideon comes back alive suddenly when Harry dies, and he's like, what happened here? Is that Henry? Henry on the floor? Like, he can't believe it. So everybody else is sort of like happy Henry died. At least everybody who's not a part of Harry's posse is happy.
Even they're okay with it. Like, nobody drops a tear,
Yeah.
They just say, like, oh, I'm sad that he died.
Maybe they didn't even know Harry was evil, too. Maybe he was, like, influencing them. Like, before Harry showed up, they were just nice, normal guys. But then when he comes, he really turns them up,
Yeah.
So, basically the people in the community invite the family over for a picnic or a house party, like a get-together where they all get the food together in the backyard. And, they go out and have a party at the end of the movie. And they leave Harry's body in the house. So, any comments on the ending?
It was definitely, like, weird because... Yeah, like, people usually don't sit with dead people in their kitchen for, like, a good... I don't know, like 20 hours.
Right.
It was, or maybe even one day.
Yeah.
Right. And but like the way they're acting, it's like, oh, now that the devil is gone, like we can just chill. Like we don't really care if he's dead on the floor.
Yeah.
Because as long as he's not alive and he's not talking, that's fine. And I also like the fact that they were waiting for the ambulance or the hospital to come pick him up, and they were saying like, oh, if this was a white folk, like they would have been here 3 hours ago or something like that. And I also like that ending addition there because it almost made me feel like, oh, like even in situations like this, like black people are left alone to deal with them, in America. And
I definitely thought that's a part of the sleeping with anger, right? Maybe like the subtle racism, the constant racism you deal with in life, like not having like we all know if this happened in Malibu, that body would have been out of there, right? But it's a black hood, it's the dangerous hood, it's the ghetto, we're not coming, right? So that's the anger that you have to sleep with, right? And you wake up in a rage that you put down again, like an earthquake, right? So there's that. I really like the final thing that we heard from Susie and Gideon, because Gideon is like trying to tell this story about, you know, black folks going to heaven and everybody's enslaved. So then they go to hell and they see everything is fun. And Susie says, I don't want to hear stories about colored people in hell. And Gideon's like, no, listen, it don't matter. Black people, white people. And she's like, I don't want to hear stories about people in hell. I just love that like scene, because it can be broken down so many ways in like in time that we don't have. But I feel like that's also a core of this story too. Like at the end of the day, as much as Susie and Gideon love the old ways, they know back home is hell. That's why that's why Susie told Babe Bro, her son, you know, you must be crazy going back to Mississippi, right? Like, yeah, we like the chickens and growing corn and stuff, but you don't want to go back there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's what I felt like, you know, Gideon, he still thinks it's funny sometimes. But I think Susie realizes, no, they have a good thing and they shouldn't be, you know, always, you know, making light about that stuff. Any comments?
I mean, Gideon's the one who's been blacked out. So like, he doesn't really...
He doesn't know.
Yeah, he doesn't know what this family put up with.
Yeah.
You know, because he asked Susie, oh, what happened to your hand? And Susie's like, oh, I cut it.
Yeah, with a knife.
Yeah, but I really like that scene too. And I sort of got the same thing that you got. You know, like thinking that no matter how much they love the South, they know that it's somewhere that's like dangerous, and also like sort of like got this lesson where like people back home, when they come around, they are like they bring a warmth and a nostalgia, but at the same time, you know, like how our parents like talk about the people at home and first like it's good, and then they like talk about someone they hate, you know, and it like just becomes like really bad.
Yeah, real quick.
It sort of like reminded me of that a little bit, you know, because like my grandma lives where she was born, you know, in the little village. She doesn't live there, but she goes there often. And there's like once she goes there, the first day if I call her, she's like, oh, it's so good, like trees and the forest and everything. And then like a week later I call her and she's like, I'm bored because there's no TV.
Man, I love that scene. And I think we'll wrap it up with this movie. I just gotta say, I really love this movie. I could talk about this movie for days. And that's why we do these long reviews, because, you know, it's more than just saying a movie is good or bad. It's like talking about these stories that have so many layers to them. And that's why I love doing these reviews with you, Acti, because like we go deep in these things, and you put some spin on it that, you know, I can't get. And I feel like I might do the same, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
So, overall score for this film, you know, I got to give it a 9. Give it a 9. There's maybe like 1 or 2 scenes I would cut because maybe they don't add on to the story. It makes it a bit too long. But overall, knockout performance from everybody involved, but especially Danny Glover and whoever played Babe Brother. Shout out to Richard Brooks. I feel like he did an excellent job as Babe Brother. Brought that character to life, for real. So I'll give it a 9. Very funny, very smart, very deep, not cheesy. Possibly the best black movie you've never seen. That's probably what I'm going to title this. This is the best black film that you've never seen. So what's your final thoughts?
I'm going to give it... I want to give it a 10. Fuck it. Okay. I'm going to give it a 10 because I really like movies that are hidden, that have hidden like symbols and little jokes.
Kind of psychological.
What? Kind of psychological, yeah, exactly. But yeah, like I just love those type of movies, and I feel like they keep you locked to the screen. So yeah, and like I agree with everything else you said, like the acting and everything. And Danny Glover is like a superstar. Yeah. You know, in here, and
this character is not as good as Mr., but it's close.
Yeah.
It's close.
But it's this movie is not popular at all, and I feel like only maybe like really, really deep movie geeks would know about this movie. Yeah. And I feel like this is a classic. Like this should be a classic. This should be a classic. And definitely go like check this out. Even if you're white. Yeah, like it's not really like, it is a very black movie, but it's not that much about also it is about blackness, but also it's much more philosophical than
much
that.
more about family, like
Yeah.
a Kevin Hart special, right? Kevin Hart talks about his black ass life and family, but we all got badass kids, you know what I mean,
that's a
and
great way to put
and a
it.
gangsta uncle, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. It is, and it's like, you know, more philosophical.
Mm-hmm.
There are like biblical references and this theme of younger generation versus older generation.
yeah, I mean, you could tell this story with white folks too. Like, I feel like this film would be a perfect play. You know, like it's usually plays become films. This film should become a play and should be seen by like more people and done live, because you could tell this story in a lot of different cultures, contexts, times, and it would still have the same resonance if it's acted well. It's all about the acting that carries this.
Yeah, definitely. I also think it would be great as a play, and if I can relate to it as a Turkish person, I think like almost everyone could relate to it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
They should make a Turkish version of this.
They should. They should. I think it would be hilarious.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm gonna give it a 10.
Yeah.
Because I really like this movie.
A Turkish family in Germany with an uncle from back home, Mehmet, comes from Antalya or wherever, Ankara, and he's deep in it.
Yeah, the superstitions that you're gonna see, you're gonna laugh. But anyway,
it'll be crazy.
It's not a real movie.
It'll be great. All right, so this has been episode, I believe, 109 of Simon and Acting Movie Reviews. Do not forget, we will be doing our Oscars on the first 100 films we've seen, so don't worry about that. And that will be coming soon. We'll probably do it on the actual day of the actual Oscars to compete, because I know we'll get more views. More views.
Sure.
And we're not giving nothing to Honora, so don't even come tuning in for that. That's what you not gonna get.
No Wicked.
No, yeah, we did a review. We saw Wicked. We could do a 1-minute review on Wicked. It was alright.
It was nothing more special than the original.
Ooh, okay, that's a hot take.
How is that a hot take? Like, I don't know. There was no improvement. It was, the original is good, and this was okay.
Okay, I like the singing. Like the main girl who plays the Wicked Witch is okay.
Yeah,
like,
of course, but those are like the old songs.
Yeah, I didn't like the interpretive dance scene or Ariana Grande's collarbone. Get her a sandwich.
Wow, let's not skinny shame people.
She's anorexic.
No,
we should shame
not.
that. Yes, she is.
No,
yes, she is.
Okay, we're not doing this.
Okay.
But anyway, I don't think it was that special. Obviously, the music is good because, it's like Broadway singers and everything.
Okay,
so.
quick score for Wicked. I give it 6.
Yeah,
it's a solid 6. All right, that's it.
That's it.
Y'all be easy. Peace.